Hello, everyone. This is Mike, and this is my brother Mark, and we're back here talking about. Now we're going to go into the tribe of Gad again. Very interesting tribe. That's not very well known. In fact, there's nobody that in particular from the tribe of Gad that in the Bible that's like stands out as a major character. So that's an interesting point, but that's not to say that Gad was a very a large and influential tribe, fairly quite warlike, as the name suggests. Troop, Gad means troop, or a encampment or troop. That's what it means. He was the son of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid. He was the first son of Leah's handmaid, and Gad was lived in the eastern section of east of the Jordan. They wanted to. They were with Reuben a fair bit in the beginning. They were a reasonably larger tribe, but not that big in comparison to other tribes. But what happened was the prophecy was they were enlarged, and they truly were enlarged. And they were a troop that was overcome. They were taken out of the Holy Land, and they were overcome even by some of other groups like the Romans and even some of their other brotherly migrations of their other fellow Israelite tribes. They were overcome several times, but they did overcome their enemies, in Rome, for example. And how do we know this? Because Gad can be said Goth, or Geet, Got. That's actually where Goth is can be said in Hebrew for Gad. You can say Gad, God, Got, or Goth. And so, yeah, the Gadites are the Goths, the Geets, the Gutonis, all these names, Gete. These names are direct, and the Visigoths and West Goths and East Goths, Ostrogoths. These are the tribe of Gad. So we can see they spread across the west and the east, and they had quite a lot of land, and they truly were an enlarged tribe. So we find the tribe of Gad all over Europe, and so that's why that prophecy was fulfilled. And so they're going to be a very influential tribe today, because they were large, fairly large in number now. So they went from a relatively smaller tribe in comparison to the other tribes, but to now a quite substantial tribe with good numbers. So we will go to Genesis 30, verse 11. This is where we get the name and the symbol for the tribe of Gad. Yeah. And Leah said, "A troop cometh," and she called his name Gad. And so that's where we get the sign of Gad. Is like a troop, a mounted horse, like a camp or a tent. That's like an ancient one that's not used very much anymore. The more prevalent ones for the tribe of Gad is actually the mounted horse, like a horse with a guy with a sword. Then the other one is a lion holding a sword, or a sword with an arm clenched holding a sword. So it's close to Simeon, the tribe of Simeon. But the tribe of Simeon is just a sword, a hand holding a sword, but not like curved, like ready to strike. This one has like a curved sword ready to strike, which is different. And that's the tribe of Gad. So that's how we know the difference between a Gad and the tribe of Simeon, is that it usually have a lion with a sword, or the arm, just where the arm stretched looking to strike. Or you have a mounted horse. So a mounted person on a rider. So like a troop. So a lot of times the troops would come mounted on a horse with a sword. And so that's where you get that sign for Gad, which is actually quite prevalent when you look at the tribe of Gad. And we have that lion with the sword, which is another pretty prevalent sign of the tribe of Gad. The tent is not very common. Like I said, it was only used in ancient times. So that's why you don't see that sign very often. So those are the signs of the tribe of Gad. So now I'm going to talk about the next prophecy. The other prophecy regarding Gad, which is important, is Deuteronomy 33, verses 20 to 21. So again, Numbers 2 tells you that they're a medium-sized tribe. Along with Reuben and Simeon, they were in the south, and they're in the east, a lot of Jordan. So again, so the tribe of Gad went quite a ways far east, as far as even the Euphrates River, as some sources, Jewish sources, have claimed. So they migrated quite far east. But they also didn't just go east. They didn't just enlarge themselves east. They enlarged themselves west and north as well. And we'll go to Deuteronomy 33, verse 20.
But before we do that, I'm going to go to and read in Genesis 49 also.
Sure, yes,
And,
yes, correct.
Talking about him again. And
Yes,
we'll read in verse 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last.
Yeah, this is that prophecy regarding, I think, the main part of this where the prophecy was fulfilled. I don't believe it's all fulfilled. I think Gad's going to be instrumental again. As I can see the nations I'm about to tell you, when we're primarily the tribe of Gad, they're going to be instrumental in the bringing about God and the Lord Jesus Christ and the Messiah and the rulership of God on earth. They will be a very instrumental tribe. And so, yes, they were overcome by all their enemies as it looked and seemed. But later on, they overcame the very people who took them out of the land, the Romans and the Eastern peoples. They conquered those peoples. They overrun them and conquered them and lived there and dwelt there for some time before they finally made their way to Scandinavia. Sometimes they left Scandinavia and invaded other lands, but primarily they ended up in what is known as Sweden, or in southern Sweden too, in particular, called Gotland or Geatland, or Geatland. So the land of the Geats, the Gete, the Goth. So this is where they ended up. A good portion of them ended up in Germany and Sweden, and I said Sweden because one of the tribal names for the Gadites are Swanee, where you get Suavi, where you get the name of Swede. But the Den part obviously shows the tribe of Dan. So again, Gad also were around the tribe of Dan a lot, and the Naphtalites. They had a war with the Naphtalites, actually, the Huns, the White Huns. So they interacted with each other quite a bit. And so we have that. But they definitely did conquer and beat the Romans after, and they defeated all their enemies. And we're quite blessed and enlarged. And so there's another thing we're going to go to is Deuteronomy 33, 20, 21. There's a very interesting aspect of some of the characteristics of Gad.
Yes.
So,
and that also gives us the reason for the symbols as well. And it also gives the reason why that we have the lion and the sword and these other symbols. And we get that idea from these scriptures. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. And he provided the first part of himself, because therein a portion of the lawgiver was he seated, and he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of the Lord and his judgments with Israel.
So there you go. They used the tribe of Gad. God used the tribe of Gad, the Goths, to bring upon and execute judgment amongst the Israelites and other peoples. And so they were a pretty strong, powerful battle axe. They're like a lion. And they talk about the arms striking down, cutting off, the head, the crown. And so they were known. Actually, the Geats or the Goths were known for their helmets and their curved swords, like the Naphtalites and Danites, also, and the Asherites. These tribes, the Scandinavian tribes, they are known for these pole axes or halberds. And they were also good with working with metals and embroideries and that kind of thing. So they were very gifted with metals and workmanship. And so that's another thing about the tribe of Gad that is interesting. So we're not talking about just barbarians. That they had actually quite a bit of some very interesting skills that were clearly you could see wherever the Goths ended up being. In fact, they were known for making spectacular buildings, and so they were along with the tribe of Dan. There was a famous Danite that was, and with the tribe of Judah, with the temple, the building of the temple. So,
and historically speaking, also Attila and the White Huns, they had all the manner of craftsmanship and the fullness of the knowledge of the time, and they were very knowledgeable in all the crafts and the arts as well. And that's also goes for Naphtali as well.
Okay, so there's another symbol that I actually found out. It has like a chevron, a blue chevron with white trim. That's also a sign of Gad. That's on coat of arms and heraldry. So if you have that shows that that's a sign of the tribe of Gad as well. That's the one I almost forgot about. And so you have to pay attention because you can, with that blue chevron and the white trim, that's similar to actually a tribe of Issachar. But Issachar is different because they usually have the star that goes along with that chevron. So that's how you know the difference between Gad and Issachar. And Issacharites were in Finland, but so were the Gadites. And that's why you have in the Finnish coat of arms, you have the lion with the sword. That shows that the tribe of Gad made their way north from Sweden and Gotland to Finland. And we have them in Norway and Denmark, as far as Iceland. And so that's in Scotland. Invaders, they invaded Scotland. And then we look at some of those countries that they're in. Germany, was it the Romans knew that there was sizable Gothic Guttones, Getae in Germany, in that area. So they were known to be there. And the other thing is, the Gadites were, along with the other tribes like Naphtali and Dan, they were in the Scythian region or the Crimean, Ukraine area. And so they were known to be there as well. And so those are the Eastern Goths, lived in that region. And they stayed in the Crimea until the 8th century AD. They were there for a while. And so that's why you see the tribe of Gad in Ukraine and Czech Republic and these Eastern European countries.
Yeah, that's what it means
like
by
Russia
being Baltic and
right.
Balkans and those areas.
Correct. That's right. The Balt name comes from this the Asherites and the Gadites being in that area. So we have those names, and those names for the tribes tells you where they ended up. And so a lot of the Eastern Europeans had Gadites in their coat of arms, and in their cities were settled by Gadites, as they lived in that area for quite some time. So no surprise that a lot of the Eastern European countries like Lithuania even, and other countries like that, in Russia, portions of Russia, especially in the Ukraine area, had a sizable Danite population and Naphtalites, and Asherites, but also they had a lot of people from the tribe of Gad, obviously there. Those are the Eastern Goths. And the Western Goths, as we could see, they went all the way as far as Spain, actually, and they ended up in those areas. And so they didn't go to Ireland. They didn't really have a sizable portion of people in Ireland from the tribe of Gad, but they definitely did have, they went westward up to Spain. Now, along with the Vandals went to Spain as well. the Zerite Jews were there earlier. Other tribes were in that region, like Asher and the tribe of Judah and Dan were in that area before the Goths were, the Gadites were, but they came in later. We even have places called Gades along the coast where Portugal and Spain, Cadiz in Spain, that's named after the Gadites or the Goth. And that's where you get the Western Goths, the Visigoths they're called. So they went as far west as Spain and Tarshish, as they say in the Bible. So yeah, the tribe of Gad definitely was enlarged, as they said. And they definitely executed judgment on other nations and even on their Israelite brothers. So they definitely did fulfill their what they were destined to do. So I think that's an interesting part about the tribe of Gad. You know, they don't have any particular person in the book of the Bible, a character like a judge or a king, but they were very instrumental in executing judgment and very important tribe because they're all over Europe. So they truly were enlarged. So they went from like a medium tribe to quite a large tribe with many people in it. So there's a good chance that if you're European, you might have be a descendant of the tribe of Gad because they went everywhere and they were quite large in numbers. So God bless everyone and take care.